Hi, I'm Mark from L&M Small Engine. I'm sitting on a Johnsford zero turn, but we're not going to do a video on the lawnmower. We're going to do a video on the engine. It's a Kohler Confidant, 25 horsepower, twin cylinder. It's like a 747cc. In the past, the valve covers are leaking. Like I noticed like a year ago, I started getting more and more in. And last year, a lot more in this year. It's just crazy how many, probably like one a week. The valve covers are leaking oil and it's dripping on the exhaust. So I'll show you an easy way to fix it. It seems to last because nobody's come back. So I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, before I get to the valve covers, I have to take this shroud off real quick. So I'll pop it off. I'm not going to tape that because that's kind of boring. But then we'll get to the valve covers and I'll show you where they're leaking. So I'll pop it off real quick and we'll get back to the valve covers. Okay, we'll do the right side first. And as you can see, this oil is coming out of the bottom of these. They don't use regular gaskets, they use glue. I don't know what the deal is, but it seems like the last year or so I get one of these motors in like once a week, it seems like. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove the fuel pump. I'm just gonna move it out of the way. It's a lot easier than taking off all the hoses. Just take our primer hose off the valve cover there. And some of them you might have to take the top blower housing off, but in this case I think we're fine. And these are torque bolts. There's 4 of them. The top of it was kind of loose and the bottom one was really tight. Top one on this side is loose too, but they're leaking out of the bottom. And see, they just glue them. You know, back on the older motors, they used regular head gaskets. Even with the twin cylinder brakes and even the 31 cubic inch, 33 cubic inch newer brakes, this valve covers on heads are glued on too. Well, that's just glue and it just like disintegrated. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take the wire wheel grinder, I'm gonna clean all that off. And we're gonna clean this off here. And we're gonna put some nice Permatex on here and see if we can't solve this oil leaking problem. Okay, I got the old gasket sealer off that head, and I cleaned off the valve cover here real good. And before I put goop on and stuff, I don't know if you can see it, but where the bolts go through, it's kind of cone shaped right here. So what I like to do, you don't do this very hard, but just put it on a hard surface and just lightly tap that back down again, just so it's level. Because when they put that sealant on, you know, you have to let it sit for a few minutes before you tighten them up. All that pressure, then these, where your bolts go through, kind of gets sucked in a little bit. But you don't need to hit them hard. We already did that one already. But they're a lot more flatter now. That way you get a good seal around the whole thing. That's just something I like doing. Then before we put it on, take your carburetor cleaner and clean that edge where we're going to put that sealant on. Get that nice and clean. If you get it a little bit inside by the springs, that stuff evaporates anyway. We'll get that flat surface nice and clean. And do the same thing with your valve cover. Just a nice clean surface to work with. And the top, that's for your fuel pump. But down here, we're going to put a little bit extra heavy from halfway down and around. I like using this JB Weld sealant in that RTX or RVX, whatever. That stuff's really good too. But you want to get the gasket maker and sealant. That's what you want to use on these. It makes a gasket, plus it seals it. I've been, I started fixing these valve cover. I think like 4 years ago they started coming in, not very often, but as the years got closer, it's like at least once a week and a half this year. So them original gaskets they make must start deteriorating after so many years or something. And what it does, it leaks on the exhaust pipe, and it just follows the exhaust pipe down the muffler, and I haven't seen one catch on fire, but I'm sure it's possible. I'm going to put a nice little bead on it. Go around the holes. Why they quit using gaskets, I really don't know, but Briggs ain't doing it no more, and Kohler's not doing it. And don't get me wrong, these Kohlers, these are really good motors, nice, powerful motors, but you don't want oil leaking on the exhaust either. Okay, now we're halfway. Now we're going to make the bead just a little bit thicker on the bottom part. I'm just going to gently smooth that down just a little bit. Get on that inside edge because it's not really flat, it's like rounded. You want a good seal around the whole thing. On that inside edge there. Okay, now I'm going to set it on there. I'm going to put the screws in there, but I'm not going to totally tighten. I'm going to let this stuff set up for a few minutes. And the reason I'm going to do that, I'm going to let it get kind of firm. So then when you tighten them up, it'll have a really good seal in it. So just screw them down so they just almost touch the valve cover here. Okay, we'll let that sit for a few minutes. So I'll just turn the camera off for a few minutes, let that sit up a little bit. Then we'll tighten it, and this side will be done, and we'll go on the other side. Okay, it's almost ready to tighten up, but I'll go ahead and put this fuel pump back on. And I forgot to say these bolts for the fuel pumps on the Kohlers are 10 millimeter. 3/8 is a little bit too tight. Okay, now we can go ahead and tighten her down. Been about 3 minutes. And you can see that goop's running out of the sides, making a nice good seal. And that's what you want. You don't want the oil leaking on the exhaust. Okay, now we'll do the other side. One down and one to go. Okay, now we're going to do the left side now. And I don't know if I meant this earlier, on the ones that are glued on there, like on the other side, the two top bolts are loose. If you tighten them, it's not going to solve the leaking problem. If you had regular valve cover gaskets, that would work, but the newer ones that are glued, that don't work. And as you can see here, it's leaking on the bottom too, but not as bad as the other side. But we're just going to fix both sides and be done with it. And the saying is, you know, if one side's getting bad, the other side's not too far behind. So, and that sealant, I think I paid $5.99 for it at the hardware store. You know, it's not very expensive. You know, this is so easy to do yourself. Plus, you'll save a lot of money instead of taking it to a repair shop. And we got it off there. And when I say I use a wire brush, I use a wire brush that you put on your drill. Just make sure you wear eye protection, you know, goggles or glasses. You don't want them little wires hitting in the eyes or anything like that. So I'm going to go put this in the vise. It's a lot easier putting in the vise and doing half at a time than trying to hold it. You don't scuff your fingers or anything like that. So I'll go clean it up and I'll clean the head up and we'll get back to this. Okay, we got all the old gasket glue off there. Make sure you have a really clean surface and wipe it with a paper towel or rag. And that goes with the valve cover too. And you can really see on this one here, like these two right here are really sucked in there. So we'll just take the hammer, make sure you're on a nice hard surface, and just slightly tap them down. Don't need to beat them to death, just tap that cone down until it's nice and flat again. And you'll get a nice seal. So on the valve cover, we'll spray that down with a carb cleaner, wipe it off. Okay, this is gonna sit on here like this here. So on this bottom half, I'm gonna put a little bit extra on there than the top because the oil pulls down towards the bottom. So apologize for the air compressor running. So let's put a nice bead, go around the bolt holes. Okay, now we're halfway, so I'm gonna make this a little bit thicker, not much. And when we smooth it out, kind of because that valve cover is like curved. So you want it on the inside and on the outside. But don't get excessive with it on the inside. You don't want it interfering with your valve train. A nice little bead on the inside there. Just like that. And we'll start the bolts, but like I said on the other one, we're not going to tighten them all the way. Let that gasket maker / sealant set up a little bit. Okay, let that sit for a few minutes, like 2 or 3 minutes. Some people don't like doing that, but I like doing that. Like I said before, I hate redos. I'd rather do it right the first time. Another thing I should mention too, when we get this all done, I'll let it sit for a couple hours before I start up and get some heat in the block. Let it cure for a little bit before you get that heat to it. I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, it's been about 3 minutes or so. Let's go ahead and torque these down. See how that adhesive just makes a nice little bead on the outside there. Means you have a good seal. All right. Like I said, this is a real simple job. Okay, we got that project done. I'm not going to put the shroud on it because that's just boring. It's just 2 bolts on the bottom, 2 bolts here, then the bolts for the bagger. But I hope you enjoyed the video. And like I said, let it sit for a couple hours. Let it set up before you start it up and have that engine produce that heat in there. And you should have no problems. Like I said, the ones I fixed like 4 years ago haven't even come back yet. So, but I have nothing against Kohler. I don't like the glue they use. But anyways, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. You have a good afternoon. Bye.